First off, as is the normal, it is Friday, and you know what that means. That means that at some point tonight, we will be doing our preview for AEW Rampage, as we always do on Fridays, to spotlight the second weekly program from AEW. But first, we gotta get to the news, as well. The news cycle is what we spend the majority of our time talking about. And that is the best way for us to go about it, as I just kicked the referee in the face. But we got a lot of updates and a lot of things to talk about, so let's get into it. Starting with Stu Grayson has officially returned to AEW. Stu Grayson was a part of the six-man tag team match between the Dark Order and the BCC on Dynamite this past week, and Stu Grayson had been out of AEW since late last year when his contract expired. At first, Stu Grayson was a long-tenured member of AEW, and then decided when his contract expired to go in a different direction. But now, after a solid performance in his home country, which Stu Grayson is Canadian, and he was able to make his AEW return in his home country of Canada, and now Stu Grayson is back in AEW. I mean, ever since Preston Vance, with Preston Vance leaving the Dark Order and joining Los Ingobernables, it really led to many wondering the momentum of the Dark Order. And I mean, ever since, reality is the Dark Order hasn't really been doing much since before taking Hangman Page's side in the BCC rivalry with, in the Mox Hangman rivalry. So it is good to see them getting some momentum and building some momentum as the feud develops, and especially with the Trios Championship, it always pays to have a credible tag team like the BCC, or a credible trio like the BCC, have the opportunity to have some momentum. In case you need somebody to challenge for the Trios Championships, you have the BCC waiting in the wings. I don't know that the BCC will ever actually challenge the House of Black, but the reality is they are a credible faction, and there is no reason why they should not be able to challenge the BCC. I mean, the House of Black, rather, at some point, even though it does seem like the rivalry now, in some form or fashion, includes the BCC and the Dark Order. I think that if the feud's going to keep developing, the Dark Order may find their way out of the rivalry, and the House of Black will always need a new contender, because if this is going to lead to bigger things for the House of Black, I mean, you got to keep the momentum going somehow, because the House of Black deserves all the momentum in the world. But either way, welcome back to AEW, Stu Grayson. Now we're going to be doing a lot of jumping back and forth, because there's a smattering of news to go around, and that includes a health update on Kofi Kingston, as Kofi Kingston was removed from the Fatal 5-Way a couple of weeks ago, or last week, after suffering an ankle injury. And now there is a report on that ankle injury, as Kofi Kingston was in Birmingham, Alabama, at that one place that you never want to hear your favorite wrestler has gone to, and that is the Andrews Institute, because Kofi Kingston, anytime WWE has a wrestler that needs to get major surgery, Kofi Kingston is down there to get some major surgery on his ankle and get everything up and, get everything back to normal and ready to go. So Kofi, I am right there with everybody else, wishing Kofi nothing but the best as far as his recovery time, and that it doesn't take too long for the New Day to be back in full form, with Kofi likely returning a few months after WrestleMania. Either way, we move over to a Big E update, as I believe it was Dave Meltzer that went on record to say that with Kofi's injury, there may have been a rumor for the New Day to make a full-fledged return at WrestleMania this year that may be a little up in the air now at this point because of Kofi's injury. But this just means, but the big picture to take away from this is that means that Big E could be coming back soon and making a return, because even if they just allowed the New Day to, Kofi to be wheeled out in a wheelchair, and you get the reaction like that with Kofi being wheeled out on the wheelchair and them interrupting the Miz, as the Cultaholic guys said it in their video, that you could have them wheel out and interrupt the Miz and cause some deterrent during WrestleMania. I think everybody would love to see Big E back, because Big E has been gone Big E's been gone for the last year, pretty much. He hasn't been seen since he broke his neck back last year. And I think anybody would love to see Big E back, and especially if it means seeing the New Day back in full form. You get that WrestleMania moment, it's something that people will talk about for months. Seeing the New Day, even if the New Day's not back in full form and 100%, seeing the New Day back is something that everybody will talk about for months. If we do actually get to see the New Day back. The fact of the matter is, though, we also have an update on the Vince McMahon biopic, which I believe is something we have not gotten an update on in pretty much almost a year, it feels like. It took me a second to remember what the hell they were talking about when it came to the Vince McMahon biopic. But the fact of the matter is, once I remembered, I was like, oh yeah, we haven't heard anything about that in a while. We haven't heard anything about that in a while, and it's like, I guess it's good that we hear something about it, and I kind of figured that it was going to be canceled with the fact that we had not heard an update on it in quite a long time. But as they said in the Cultaholic video, with all the stuff that's going on with Vince McMahon right now, it's not the time to make a movie about him. It's not the time to make a movie about him, and I 100% agree with that. It's unfortunate because I, for one, would love to. I, for one, don't watch movies that often. So having a movie about Vince McMahon come out would be a perfect movie for me to pay attention to, and want to have in the forefront of movies that I'm looking forward to. Because fact of the matter is, I don't really care about most pictures, and it would have been interesting to see, because even with all the criticism, I did watch The 9 Lives of Vince McMahon from last year, or from, I think it was last year, late last year when it came out on Vice. I enjoyed it. I thought it was okay. I didn't really necessarily agree with everything that was included in the movie, but it was an interesting movie, and I think having a movie that would be able to provide more time and go into more depth onto certain things would benefit the overall picture, which is, like the Ric Flair documentary that came out a few months ago, that shined a light on things that we never heard about Ric Flair, because we never got that depth before. And if we were able to get that depth on Vince McMahon, it would be able to shine a light on a story that really has never been told. But with that being said, we have other things. We have more news to get to in another news video. So we will be jumping over to that next news video right now. So stay tuned for that, and stay tuned for the preview for AEW Rampage later tonight as well. I will see you in the next video.